Welcome. We've got another episode of Stockport Grammar School Talks Sport. Today's guest, it's really exciting from my personal point of view, because obviously we want to get better every day in terms of coaching, and this is the man who's going to help us do that. This person has been sports psychologist at Manchester City, Lancashire Cricket Club, Sports Coach UK, is a talent coach advisor, and today's coach developer at England and Great Britain Hockey. So welcome to Stockport Grammar School Talks Sport, Paul Connolly.
Thanks, Dan. Looking forward to this. Really looking forward to engaging you in some good conversation.
No, good stuff. So we'll start off with a little bit of a background about your journey and what you've gone through from possibly school days all the way to where you are today at England Hockey.
Yeah, well, I was never a gifted and talented performer, just a plodder, really. I played everything, cricket, football, bit of rugby, golf, as I later grew up, and, just love being what I call recreational sport. Got into some district teams, but, just loved being out about there. And I guess a lot of my story around that actually is around developing good movement skills without really thinking about it. And I think we've got a massive problem in our society now where children, young people don't develop the movement skills that we know around performance. So I got a massive interest in that as well. And then in work, I went into social care basically and got some qualifications, went into my own business with my wife and took some counselling qualifications because the care setting required that. And I had a massive interest around that then, around, being supportive of people. And then I met a guy at Lancashire Cricket called Bill Bezic, who ended up actually being an assistant manager with Steve McLaren, the England job. And Bill was fantastic because he was talking at a presentation at Old Trafford, talking about mental skills. And I'm thinking, that's my stuff, that. Yeah. A counsellor. And I went up to him after and I said, I was going through a bit of a career change in life. And at 40, we sold our business. And I said, Bill, I said, all that stuff, that's my bag. I'm really easy. And he, to credit him credit, he said, well, I'd recommend, Paul, you go and do a master's in sports psych at Manchester Uni. And from there, I got a job at Manchester City before the money, and with Joe Royal and Willie Donachie, and did some great work with the players there. When Joe got sacked, went to Old Trafford, cricket with Mike Watkinson. Again, did some really good stuff. But all the time I was working, I realised that a lot of the work I was doing was with coaches. Although the players were bought in and we had lots of good stuff, the big piece for me was engaging coaches to have that conversation and how they interact better with players and how we get the best out of them, that 1%. And then Sports Coach UK advertised for a coach developer, and then I'm, a coach developer and a UK sport mentor, and that's my story really. And I work across a variety of governing bodies.
And then just in terms of, we're talking a little bit about teams, and obviously in your journey there, you've worked with some good teams in terms of players, but also coaching staff. Yeah. What do you think that makes a good team or great team?
I think a clear objective, a clear focus, and being able to communicate well within each other around the team philosophy and not making it too complicated. Mm-hmm. And I'm very aware, Dan, that I talk about this. A massive piece for me is player-coach relationship. Yeah. You listen to stories now around Mourinho and Pep, and their relationship with their players are really close. Mm-hmm. They know they know each other. They know when times are tough and people are going through things, and that for me is absolutely key. And so the whole coaching conversation that we have at the moment in England Hockey and some of the other sports we work with is how do we improve coach and player relationship, and within that dynamic, Dan, parents. Yeah. How do we keep parents communicated within the process of their child's development? Because at the end of the day, parents only want the best for their child. It's just that sport doesn't actually communicate with them very well.
Mm, yeah. No, you're right. And have you got any examples of what you've seen of where these great teams have happened?
Yeah, I mean, when I go back particularly to some where I did Mike Watkinson at Lancashire, where he was, for example, really clear about his objectives for what he wanted, but again, go back to the relationships piece. At various times the players weren't always sure about where Mike came from, and sort of what's going on in your mind. And we did a piece around actually him sat down in front of the players after doing some psychological analysis of himself and saying this is how he's being perceived. And actually the players are like, wow, I didn't realise that. I didn't realise you were like that, Mike. And it opened up a massive opportunity for them to communicate better. So again, it comes back to that communication. You know, if you're not on board with each other and you're not clear, then it just gets lost. Which then comes into things like commitment then, Dan, and, you know, your commitment, your resilience, which I think, again, massive opportunities for a lot of people development.
We've been talking a little bit about high performance, and it means different things to different people. What does it mean to you?
I think for me, it's about a commitment, a drive, a real focus on where you want to be, and I'll tell this story. Having an ownership, taking ownership for yourself. So, you know, in the games in Old Trafford, Lancashire, we had an experience with one of our 16-year-olds who opened his bag up down at Somerset before a game and went, oh no, my mum's not packed my boots. You're like, hang on a minute, you're in a high performance environment, you need to start looking after yourself, you know. And we changed that, and we started to create a club charter and a player charter for them, taking ownership about themselves, which, to be honest, Dan, is then giving them a holistic view of themselves, their own development. So you're in a school setting, so you know, giving them a commitment and an ownership is like, it's not just in sport. Have that for your rest of your life. You know, if you're going to take ownership about your homework, you need to do it. It's not your mum and dad or whatever. It's about you having to do it. So it translates across your sport, but also into life. Yeah. And that I think has been a huge learning kind of for us.
Yeah. No, that's good. And you've touched upon this next question, but as a coach, as a psychologist, then how do you ensure that happens, the high performance aspect within your teams as possibly coaches?
Yeah, well, I think it comes back initially to knowing the player about what their focus is and where do they want to be. Yeah. I think there's got to be some clear communication about, you know, what's their target. Yeah. You know, and you know it's not hard. This, you know, if you're going to have a goal, you need a short, medium, long-term goal. But what do you have to do tomorrow to be able to achieve the long-term goal? And that's where you take ownership and direction. If they then show a lack of commitment, a lack of drive, then quite clearly within a week you can potentially spot that initially you said you wanted to do this, but you know, that's 3-4 years away. If you're not doing it tomorrow, something about it tomorrow, then it's not going to happen. Now, obviously, that might mean a few things around we break it down, don't we, into physical, technical, tactical, mental. Yeah. So out of those areas, as an individual, what do you need to develop tomorrow? And just break it down. Yeah. You know, I need to get, you know, if you're doing running, I need to do X amount of runs a week. Well, that's a start to then build up that long-term aim. Now, of course, there's communication there between the coach and the player. Yeah. But the player has to take responsibility about, you know, it's not their fault, it's yours. It's your responsibility. So that for me is a key message, that it's the individual who's got the drive to do it. You know, and you know, the research would suggest, you know, there are players going through academies, for example, who, you know, one or two of them could be the most technically gifted of all. You know, could be superstars, but because they haven't got that drive and commitment, it'll be a little Jimmy or Jane. He'll you know, develop quicker, develop better long term because they've lost that. They've got more drive and determination. Yeah,
no, you're right. It's that talent over hard work, isn't it? And
absolutely.
And then
yeah. You know, you hear stories the other night, didn't they? Fernandez, you know, he didn't get a game, so he spent 45 minutes out on the practice ground on his own, just kicking balls around the you know, from a free kick. So, you know, that message throughout a system is awesome, because that's showing commitment, drive, dedication, and determination. That, you know, it's not an easy win.
And then in terms of you personally as well, have you obviously you have got role models throughout your life? Have you got anyone who stands out for you, who influenced you on your journey? And
I think a key one for me is, I mean, I worked really close with him at City, and I still am. Willie Donachie. Yeah. Is, you know, he's I mean, he's now, I don't dare ask him actually how old he is. I was on a session with him last night. You know, he's somebody who looks after himself. He looks an athlete now, let alone he can play. I'm sure he can play a good game of football now. So again, he's developed himself and continued to work in the environment. Obviously, he's not as high profile as he used to be, but people like that, and Winker at Lancashire, you know, massive influences on me within sport, about not so much their technical ability, but just their drive and commitment to keep learning, but, you know, working with the players.
that love for learning and that wanting to get better every day, that's so important, isn't it?
Absolutely. We again with our players and our coaches. There's never a time, is there, Dan, where you stop learning? It is just, and if you do, then that's really dangerous because we're living in a different society, for example, than we were 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago from my days, and how we interact with people is completely different. Yeah. And we need to engage people in their world and need to look at what their environments are, and that means we now constantly need to listen and learn and maybe go on courses or whatever, but really share our good practice with each other.
Talk a little bit about resilience and stuff. Obviously, in your journey, you've had probably highs and lows and setbacks maybe. Can you name any setbacks that stick out to you, and what did you do to overcome those setbacks?
Yeah, well, I again, just before that, going back to the theory, there's, Professor Dave Collins talks about the rocky road, and all life is a rocky road, and often young performers think that their progressions is linear, a nice straight line, but often it is about those dips that actually help us learn. There's lots of stuff from my sports life. There's been experiences where I thought I'm doing really well, and then I get a bad injury, and that's it. And I've lost my way for 2 or 3 months. And I do think, Dan, at the moment, this experience that we're all going through is quite an interesting opportunity to help some of our players think about. We've not played sports, so how do we develop ourselves mentally? Because this could be a sort of an application of when we're injured or we lose form, and form is could be 2 or 3 months out, like lockdown is. So what are we going to do from a physical, technical, tactical, but also mental approach to help us get better? And I think going back from my point of view, there's been times where I have had a few lows, and it's sit back, reflect. What are the opportunities to really move forward? And think about what is my goal? How can I build it from there?
Yeah, no, definitely. I was speaking to somebody else the other week on this series. They were saying when they got an injury, actually they turned it into a positive and thought, I'm going to learn so much about my body now in this injury process that when I go back, I'm going to be stronger. So that was quite insightful. Yeah.
And a little strategy I use is where am I now? Where do I want to be, and how am I going to get there? Yeah. So again, while I'm in that situation, it's getting those 3 questions and thinking, okay, so I might need to now change a bit. I might need to adapt. I might need to do a bit more of whatever. So it's where am I now? Where do I want to be, and how am I going to get there? Yeah. And you can review that on a weekly and daily basis.
What are Paul Connolly's 3 non-negotiable behaviours you'd expect from yourself and anybody else you come into contact with?
Trust. Rapport, being able to have good rapport, and commitment. 3 big things for me.
And in terms of that, can you just elaborate a little bit? What does it look like? So those 3 non-negotiables.
So for me, showing respect to my coach, showing respect to my players, the environment, and that's whether it's a school setting, a club, an organisation, respecting each other and players of the whole system. That's where we that's our, if you like, our bread and butter. That we need to respect each other, and building that rapport is again with my teammates, with my colleagues. Which again, big one for me is building trust and relationships, which we all have within our systems, but we don't work very hard at. Yeah. And then that commitment is showing commitment day in, day out to each other, but also to myself and to the principles that I'm working towards, and that people then can see those behaviours.
If Paul Connolly could go back to Stockport Grammar School as a 12-year-old boy, what would you do different? And what advice would you say to yourself, knowing what you know now?
That's a great question, isn't it? I think for me, it would be keep trying. Yeah. Be aware that that I'm doing my best. Yeah. And looking for the right people and to keep within a positive environment and show that I am trying my best to people. I think we get, particularly young people have so many distractions these days that, do we really try our best? And I think for me, as an individual, if I went back in time, that's probably the biggest thing I would do. Keep showing people I'm trying to do my best.
Yeah, no, definitely, and then that's something we're big on as well. It's also doing it for yourself, your own mental well-being, because we say to the kids is going with that mindset. You're going to go into a lesson or a conversation, you want to go in that positive mindset, because if you leave thinking you could have done better, that's the worst feeling in the world. Leave knowing you've done everything you can, and you're in a better place there.
Yeah, there's an educational researcher that's called Carol Dweck, who created the whole growth mindset language that all schools use, but also now the sports are beginning to use. You think about, she constantly uses the word yet. I might not be able to do it yet if I keep working on this, or and that's a massive opportunity for us as coaches, to work with our players. And you might not be getting it, but yet if you keep working on this or you keep working on that, and reinforcing the element of hard work, which is what she talks about. It's important to keep working hard and believing in yourself.